think that's what gets us pipeline welders hooked. I think it's the smell of this pipe coating. The smell of the old greeny weenie. Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I am going to be fitting up a 24-inch piece of pipe, 375 wall, almost like I would on test day. There's a few things we're gonna be doing different because I kind of got in two different zones at the same time, if you will. In other words, as you'll see here in a minute, I was going to square the end of this piece of pipe, and then as I got started, I didn't even check it with the square again. I just kept eyeballing it. That's because on test day, that's what I do on test day, because on test day, the whole idea is to make sure your fit is blacked out or touching all the way around, versus on like a fabrication job, you want the ends of your piece of pipe to be square. And at the end of this video, I'm going to share with you another tip about something I do on test day that I didn't do when prepping for this weld. But before we get started, I did want to let you know that we're having a sale on all of our tools in the arosswelding store. We're offering 15% off if you use the code TOOLSFORSALE, all one word, all caps, at checkout. You will get 15% off of all of our tools. This here is the circle burner. It's one of our favorite tools in the arosswelding store. You do have to purchase a straight attachment for your torch. The thing I like about this circle burner is the, I guess you could call it leverage or comfortability versus a 90-degree torch or a 90-degree circle burner. 90-degree works great for some things, but like I said, sometimes it's not as comfortable as this one. For instance, on pipe fence, if you've seen some of the videos, you know, but if you haven't, you may not know, when popping holes in our post, we do this number, and it's a lot easier and a lot more comfortable to do this than like standing sideways and making sure. It's just more comfortable in some situations. So wanted to let those of you know about that in case you were not aware and you were doing some last minute Christmas shopping. The sale ends tomorrow, December 16th. And to get notified for future sales or anything else that we have going on with arosswelding, you can go to our website and get on our email list. Scroll to the bottom of the homepage or close to the bottom. There will be a couple of options, one of them being subscribe. Click on that subscribe button and it'll take you to a form to fill out. Punch in your name and email and that'll put you on the email list. All right, so here's the situation at hand. This is the bevel that we beveled with a stick welder. In another video, if you don't know about it, we'll link it in the description below. It's a little wavy. So what I think I'm gonna do, back to the issue. I about forgot to share the issue. The issue is my pipe wrap. I've done cut it up and it's not long enough to go all the way around this piece of 24-inch. So I either need to go to the welding supply, buy another pipe wrap, which would be the quickest, or we can learn something. And what I'm gonna learn, what I'm gonna share with you, what I've learned over the years of pipelining is I'm gonna use this square to square up the end of this piece of pipe. See how there's a gap there? So we know this needs to come down. It's not bad that way. So that's the first thing I'm gonna do. Get this square, and then I'm gonna measure from here down the same distance all the way around. That way I can use a shorter pipe wrap. So from this point forward, I got in what I said earlier, test mode. In other words, I didn't use my square to check the end to make sure the end of this piece of pipe was actually square. I was focused on it being all one plane, because that's what I'm always focused on test day, is having the perfect fit, ideally. still a little wavy, but this one here I believe was a factory edge. We can tell because the coating is, it's a straight line right here, so that usually means it's factory, but even the factories can be messed up. In fact, this one was just to a point, it didn't have much of a landing on it, so I threw a landing on it and shined it up. But the only reason I wanted to go ahead and get that one all prepped is because I want to use that as a guide, because if that one's square, in theory, factory end should be pretty square. I can now take it and set up here and make sure this is all, make sure the gap's touching all the way around, and then I can take and measure down what I need to, put a pipe wrap around, heat up all this coating, burn it off, and then pull measurements from the top down to where I want to put my wrap around. The end goal is to have two pups that are square. I'm going to weld them together. The reason I want them to be square is because I'm going to put a hand bevel. Every time I make a cut, I'm going to use that cut as another weld. I want to make a lot of 24-inch welds out of this, so my goal is to keep my cuts square, since I don't have a beveling machine or a band for 24-inch. Got to do it all by hand. Got all my high-low on the inside, pretty even. And then I came to the outside and noticed I had a huge gap over here. Not huge, but my biggest gap was right here, and then we were touching from here to here. And we were touching from that line to that line. So in theory, if this is pretty square, I should be able to pull this top piece off and then make a thicker landing between these two lines and a thicker landing between these two lines, and then lay the bevel back. For those of you who may not know, most of you probably know, but there might be a few here watching that doesn't know what a landing is. The landing is just a flat spot that we put on the end of our bevel to give us something to weld to, in short. But whenever we're fitting up pups, especially for test day, wherever our pipe is touching, we've got to put a thicker landing. That way it closes our gaps. So we're more or less just shortening the hump in the bevel. You know, we're going along here and it's got a little hump in it. Well, that causes gaps on each side of our hump. You know, our little hill, there's gaps over here, but by shortening that hump, that ideally makes our gaps tighter, and that's the whole goal here. But whenever you put a thicker landing, you got to then lay your bevel back. I hope that all makes sense. And then that should close the gaps. I'm also going to go ahead and mark, give us a reference line so we know that our high-low stays the same. So right here, I'm putting the thicker landing on. You can tell by the angle of my grinder. And then right here, I'm laying the bevel back. So if I was prepping the end of this piece of pipe for a piece of fabrication, for instance, like if I wanted to weld a a flange on perfectly square to this pipe. Right here is where I should have checked the end of my piece of pipe with that 2-foot framing square like I started with at the beginning of this video. But like I said, I did not do that because I got in test day mode. I love the smell of this pipe coating. I think that's what gets us pipe-on welders hooked. I think it's the smell of this pipe coating. The smell of the old greeny weenie burning. And before I went and fit up these two pups, I went ahead and put a hand bevel on our piece of pipe using the pups that we've, you know, squared the ends up on, essentially squared, whatever, like made them all in one plane. I used them as a guide. You know, while we were here, before I welded them together, I used them as a guide to go ahead and have our next bevel ready for a weld. little bit wide over here, but I am running a 532 bead. All right, man. You bet. Heck yeah. All right, we got this thing all fit up on a 45. It is ready to weld out. Come back and see us next Friday. We will be welding with 1/8 6010, 532 8010, and 3/16 8010. We are going to attempt to puddle cap this. That just means one bead on the cap versus like 2 or 3 beads on a 45. And with 24 inch, that is the bottom of a piece of 24 inch, about this much on the bottom, is my kryptonite. It's something that I struggle with. So we're both gonna learn something next Friday. So come back and see us then. The tip that I wanted to share with you that I did not do in this video, but that I do have a habit and that I was taught to do on test day in real life is lining up your seams. So not all pipe, but a lot of pipe that we weld on with new construction, like downhill pipeline work, again, where most of my experience is. On test day, it's a habit to line up the seams and put the seams on top, because if there's gonna be any impurities in the pipe, I guess it's most likely gonna be in the seams, you know, where the pipe is joined whenever they make the pipe. In theory, there shouldn't be any impurities there either. And in most cases, from my experience, the inspector and the gas company, whatever, won't make you pull a strap from the very top. That's why we line up the seams. What's up, K-Ron? and put them on the very top. But I have heard stories, I haven't tested for this certain gas company, but I have heard stories that there's at least one gas company that I know of that does make you pull a strap out of the dead top. So that's just a lesson learned, in my opinion, to stay on your toes on test day and make the whole weld as if the whole weld needed to be, perfectly clean. And I only say that for those of you who may not know. A lot of us pipeline welders tend to cut corners, if you will, because on pipeline work, not all, but a lot of jobs are 1104 code. That just means it's a little bit more of a lenient code versus like B313, or there might be other codes also, but those are the two that I mostly heard whenever I was pipelining. So to make things faster, we know what we can get away with, until you run into a gas company like this one, where if you don't know that about this gas company, or if any other gas company decides to change what they do, you would have shot yourself in the foot by cutting corners, versus if you just would have, welded the top just like you would weld the rest of the weld. Karen, don't bump the tripod, don't bump the tripod. You're gonna give the viewers an earthquake. So anyway, fun facts, I hope. So line up the seams on test day, and then that's totally opposite from out in the field, by the way. Out in the field, we put seams at 10 and 2. Thanks for joining me today. Don't forget to check out our website, arosswelding.com, and take advantage of the tool sale that we have going on until tomorrow at midnight. Use the discount code TOOLSFORSALE, all one word, no spaces, all caps, for 15% off of your order. And if you order more than $124 worth, you qualify for free shipping. Hope you have an awesome weekend, and remember, learn something every day.